I don't have much time to write this, and I know you believe me, but he's after me, and soon. He'll be after you, too. Just do me favors. Don't read this story. He comes after anyone who reads his story. Forgive me, but I have no choice but to post this story, so the truth will be known. In the deepest dark depths of Siberia, and in the deepest, most isolated of Siberia, there has been murders and disappearances taking place. Nobody talks about the one responsible, except in harsh whispers. Russian government refuses to answer question about killer or his victims, and will say that it is just urban myth. This is not so, because truth is that killer will murder anyone who knows his story and his name. This is the legend of Death, the Killer. In times of Comrade Stalin, it was said that he sought ape-human hybrids, or apes that could be trained to live like men. On this project, Stalin had no luck and was frustrated with this failure. This was until the 1950s, at the last years of Stalin's reign, where in the deepest depths of Siberia, a feral child was found. The child had been eating wild animals and fighting wild beasts. Even when he was found, the child had blood running from his lips. Even the Soviet scientists could not tell if this is man or beast. Stalin himself was called to view this child, and even his mighty steel heart ran cold looking at this bestial child. However, Stalin remained strong and said that the child should be raised as a true Soviet citizen. Thus it was done, and the child was brought up with the top level of Soviet education. Thus his bestial nature lay buried, and its place was a true belief in communism and the Soviet Union. He was named Dmitri Artemy Ignatiev, and Dmitri A. Ignatiev was given to a good Soviet family. Dmitri A. Ignatiev worked hard in school, and after every school day, he would do extra work for the communal farms or the mines of Siberia. He put his heart and soul into building communism. This was his life and soul. As a teenager, he was a top student and hero of his city. There was not a day in his life when he was not working for glory of the motherland and people. He soon went to best university of the Soviet Union, but he still loved his hometown the best. When he graduated, he got job in the KB and was known to a ruthless hunter of the enemies of the people. There was not a single traitor or dissident whose blood did not run cold at the mere mention of the name Dmitri A. Ignatiev. He could wrestle bears for sport. He could break a man's soul just with his cold stare. Though Dmitri A. Ignatiev was a hardline communist atheist who did not believe in soul, he could recite communist works off by heart, and he always drank his vodka straight in large glasses. Even when the Soviet Union had condemned Comrade Stalin, Dmitri A. Ignatiev still kept his holy name alive in his heart and would live his life by Stalin's wise words. He could have lived in Moscow or Leningrad, but Dmitri Ignatiev chose to live in the deepest depths of Siberia because he thinks that those cities make you weak and soft. He is true Soviet man and true Siberian man. In the 70s, he married a true daughter of the Soviet Union. Her name Dunyasha Naumov, and she is fellow KB agent and the only woman he felt worthy of him. She also known for hunting down dissidents, and their relationship started as rivalry to see who could hunt down the most. He had family with her and taught them to be the model Soviet citizens and to love Lenin and Stalin, though they still had time to work and did not take many days off. Their children understood because they knew that their parents were working hard every day to build communism. He made sure that his children were given the best education and went to the best schools. This brought strong results and his offspring won many trophies and awards. This was the 80s, and Dmitri A, Ignatiev, and Naumov could not be more pleased with their accomplishments in working for communism and their service to the motherland. But little did they realize that it would soon all end. Dmitri A. Ignatiev felt his blood boil at the sight of the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of great socialist nations like the GDR, Romania, and Poland. He was sickened with rage at the execution of Ceausescu, and disgust at the protests in China. Then, the hardest blow of them all was struck when his beloved Soviet Union, and that all he had worked for, was thrown into ruins. He almost became that feral beast he as a child as he watched the dream of communism end. That beast almost overtook him again when Albania fell and the Depark's Kim Il-sung died. He had hoped that Albania at least would stand strong, as they had been the last to keep Stalin's sacred name alive. So it was their destruction that hit him very hard. The death of Kim Il-sung has also caused him great bitter sorrow, as he now worried for his Korean comrades, and he had also met Kim Il-sung as few times and admired him as true communist, and as few times and admired him as true communist carrying forward the cause of Lenin and Stalin. He still had his wife and children to love and to support. He would make sure that they kept alive the spirit of Stalin's cause and communism. Thus, he would keep that feral beast inside of him under control. This did not last for long, though, and soon a new tragedy would strike this honorable Soviet man. As a KB agent, he had made many enemies and arrested many criminals and dissidents. These people now wanted their revenge, and now there is no Soviet state system to stop them. They can take it. The Soviet official of his area who had been part of introducing the traitorous revisionist perestroika policy was now a rich capitalist fat cat and member of the Russian Mafia. He was indulging in all kinds of debaucheries, drink, drugs, and women, and he traded this to poison the people with his sin, while many died from poverty that he caused in the drugs and drink he sold them. He took their wives and daughters as prostitutes and lived like a decadent capitalist pig. He also contacted many of the men of the region who had been sent to gulags or denounced because of Dmitri A. Ignatiev. This fat cat traitor would have himself been arrested if it were not for the fall of the Soviet Union, because Dmitri A. Ignatiev was investigating his treachery, so he had cause to take revenge on Dmitri A. Ignatiev. So he made these traitors and criminals part of his branch of the Russian Mafia and made them vow to take revenge on Dmitri A. Ignatiev. That night he organized his men around Dmitri A. Ignatiev's dacha with torches to burn him out. Most dachas were made of wood, but Dmitri A. Ignatiev had his made of pure Soviet steel and concrete, so that it would embody the spirit of Stalin himself. In the deepest dark depths of Siberia, and in the deepest, most isolated of Siberia, there has been murders and disappearances taking place. Nobody talks about the owner responsible, except in harsh whispers. Russian government refuses to answer question about killer or his victims, and will say that it is just urban myth. This is not so, because truth is that killer will murder anyone who knows his story and his name. This is the legend of death. The killer. The mafia members were scared at first at this great dacha and trembled at its mighty structure. Yet the still persisted Dmitri A. Ignatiev himself was not at home that night, as he was out fighting bears to unleash his anger at the destruction of the dream he loved so dear. Irina D., Naumov, and their children were there, though, and they fought long and hard. Irina D., Naumov used all her JB training to take down countless mafia thugs. She snapped their necks and put bullets in their heads. She burned some alive and gunned down others. Their children sniped others with their hunting rifles that had been bought for their birthdays and killed more with Molotov cocktails, named after that great Soviet hero. The mafia members were terrified of Irina and even of the children. They also knew that if this, what his wife and children could do to them, what could? Dmitri A, Ignatiev himself do? They were quaking in their boots, terrified, but the gangster ex-official drove them on, and they used cowardly capitalist tactics and set the building alight with petrol bomb and napalm. They left before Dmitri A. Ignatiev could arrive and find his wife and children burned to ashes and his home, now a concrete skeleton. When Dmitri A. Ignatiev saw this sight, he lost all semblance of humanity and became a beast once more. His mind and sanity left him, and he just snapped and became an unfeeling monster with one purpose: revenge. Dmitri Ignatiev went on brutal, bloody rampage, cutting down anything in his path. The mafia goons did not even know what hit them, Dmitri A. Ignatiev tore open their throats and gutted them alive. He burned down mafia dens and killed dozens of mafia men, not stopping till he got his revenge. The corrupt pig heard about this slaughter and sent his best men after Dmitri A. Ignatiev. They came to him in the middle of Siberian tundra, and there an epic confrontation took place as the mafia men cornered Dmitri A. Ignatiev. But he fought like a wild bear against a pack of wolves. He threw one mafioso against a tree and broke his neck, and another he stabbed in the chest and pulled out his heart. He set 2 mafia men on fire, and the other he sent to an icy grave in the Siberian waters. There was another that hit with a flare gun, and 2 more he blew up with dynamite, though he was eventually taken down. And the mafia men, wanting brutal revenge, cut out Dmitri A. Ignatiev's face with a combat knife, leaving just a skull face poking through the remains of his face. He was then forced to die in agony, and the mafia thought they had won. Thought being the word here. That night, the pigs celebrated the death of Dmitri. Ignatiev and the many Russians that he had made addicted to drugs and drink. He slouched in his chair, his big, disgusting pig gut sticking out, as he watched a poor daughter lap forced into prostitution dance for him, not caring about her tears. In fact, they made him laugh. But little did he know, this would be last night of his miserable life, because Dmitri A., Ignatiev's sprit, still lived and is out for revenge. That night, disgusting pig counted his money. A ghostly hand gripped his throat, and he saw that skull face, and he screamed, but a hand gripping his face stifled his screams. The skull-faced man, who was Dmitri A. Ignatiev, and is now death. The killer said in a gentle voice, like a madman's lullaby, "Spokojnoi nochi, spokojnoi nochi, spokojnoi nochi," and he cut the face of that mafia pig to look just like his own, as the bastard screamed in pain and horror. A horrifying sight. Their boss was dead, his face cut, just like Dmitri A. Ignatiev's face was. The next night they were found dead in the exact same way. There, we have it. I have told you his story, but beware, he will be coming for you. Next, just like he is coming for me. There's no way to stop him, and kills anyone. He hears his story and cuts their face, just like his. The only hope you have of surviving is if you are a true follower of Stalin's ideas, or the ideas that continued his work. Whether that Maoism, Juche, or Hoaxism, if you are, then he might spare you. He might spare you. It depends on how true you are. I hope that I have written his life and story in a respectful enough way to both him and communism that he might spare me. Oh God, I just heard enter my house. He's coming in my room. Oh God, he's right behind me. I can feel him breathing down my neck. And oh, that knife, that face. Privet comrades, this is death. The killer here. And I want you to know that I have killed the author of this post. He now has a face just like mine. I would also like to inform you that I will be coming for you next, and there is nothing you can do. So, sleep tight, and don't let the bedbugs bite for. I will be doing the biting this night. Spokojnej noci, comrades, and look forward to my blade. Do svidania.